This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm Aradia, and I'm a superfan that lives not that far away from the guys in the United States, in Oregon. And I'm going to help them do chapters 22 and hopefully 23 if we don't run too long.
They kind of run right into each other.
Yeah.
People who listen to the podcast a lot should remember you from other previous episodes.
Yeah. Highest vocal quality for remote this time, though.
I'm really excited
great.
you have your own microphone now.
Chapter 22, The Price of the Ring, and her symbol is the Flame of Tarvalin. Egwene had only gone a short distance from Varen's rooms when Shiriam met her. The Mistress of Novices wore a preoccupied frown. If somebody hadn't remembered Varen speaking to you, I might not have found you. The Aes Sedai sounded mildly irritated. Come along, child, you are holding everything up. What are those papers? Egwene clutched them a little tighter. She tried to make her voice both meek and respectful. Varen Sedai thinks I should study them, Aes Sedai. What would she do if Shiriam asked to see them? What excuse could she give for refusing? What explanation for pages telling about the 13 women of the Black Aja and the Terangrial they had stolen? But Shiriam seemed to have dismissed the papers from her mind as soon as she asked. Never mind that, you are wanted, and everyone is waiting. She took Egwene's arm and forced her to walk faster. Wanted, Shiriam Sedai? Waiting for what?
I had to wonder if someone that noticed her following Varen was black somehow. I wondered who passed that on to Shiriam. That someone was tracking Egwene when she went and visited Varen.
Oh, I don't know, maybe.
Maybe. You think it was just a coincidence that someone noticed?
Didn't Varen walk into the kitchen while Egwene was working?
That's true.
And say, I want to see you later?
Yes.
And also we know that the Black had given Varen orders about what information to pass on to Egwene and the others for that hunt, so they knew that that meeting was taking place.
Do you think she had orders to give her the Dream Terangrial, or do you think that was something she did on her own?
Interesting. Where do we see that?
No, we hear all of that on her deathbed confession. She talks about how the Black was in a pickle for having to have her help them out with the information to hunt the Black, because they had to keep her cover, right? But she's really proud of herself for having also given Egwene the ring, because that was her own idea.
So the papers about the 13 is legitimate and it was ordered by the Black, but then she snuck the ring in there as well.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all from her deathbed confession.
I bet no one even noticed that she was going to visit Varen. I bet Shiriam just...
Probably not.
Shiriam just knew she was there, and...
Maybe.
It's like, oh yeah, somebody knew you were... It's like, yeah. The Black Aja.
I mean, either that or it was just a servant in the corridor that was like, yeah, sure, I saw her go that way. I mean, it could have just been a coincidence.
There are no coincidences in the Wheel of Time.
This is true.
Well... Shiriam reminds Egwene that she's going to be raised to the accepted, although I think Egwene's thought soon, not right now.
Yeah, not like the first night she gets back from her trip.
Yeah.
Like in a few hours after I tell you this, you're going to be going through the rings, the arches.
It is kind of rushed.
Yeah, which made me wonder, like, how dangerous is it to send a woman who is tired into the arches? Like, it requires concentration and fortitude to survive, and they're like, you're overwhelmed and tired. Now's a great time.
I wonder if they do that deliberately. Like, wait for a time when someone's overwhelmed and tired, because they seem to do it to Nynaeve as well.
It could be.
But that's, like, part of the test
fair.
is to, like, sort of, like any initiation test, like, they wake you up in the middle of the night, they're banging pots, they're like, get up, get up, get up, and you have to, like, run naked around the building 3 times, It's all about being tired and confused and, like, having to sort of conform.
It could be. Swan also seemed like she just wanted to get it done. Shiriam said her words were, once you decide to gut a fish, you don't wait until it rots to begin.
I love that line.
She's just like...
There's no use of waiting till it rots.
Yeah. She's like, well, we decided to do it, so let's do it.
There's definitely that aspect of it as well.
Yeah.
Bambi's asking how long Egwene has been back.
I thought she got back that day. Hours? Yeah.
Hours.
That was my impression. Like, she hasn't had a chance to sleep because she had her meeting with the Amyrlin. She got beaten by Shiriam.
Has she been beaten by Shiriam yet?
I don't think that's happened yet.
Oh, that hasn't happened yet. Elaine has.
Yeah, I think she goes straight. Yeah, right. She goes straight to see Varen after seeing the Amerlin.
So Elaine's already been tested.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. Elaine was being tested while Egwene was getting the dream lecture. But yeah, how does this square with the timeline for the Grey Man? So maybe it's been a day. Right, because Elaine gets sent out to get beaten. Nynaeve and Egwene go down the hallway, almost get killed. Then they all go and hang out and decide to be Hunters 3. And then...
And
so
that's
this is the next day?
after... So...
Well, and Matt was healed in there, too, somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh, and Matt was healed. We're, like, forgetting all the things.
So, I mean, a lot's happened, but it doesn't feel like they've slept.
I don't think so. Because they, like Aradio was saying, like, they get to the tower, they go to Swan's study, and that all conversation happens. And when they're leaving, the Gray Man thing happens. Like, just as they're leaving the study.
Yeah? Okay.
I think Shiriam sends them off to the kitchens to start washing pots.
Okay, yeah, so A World of Dreams starts out with Egwene scrubbing her hands on a hand towel, and they still feel greasy after washing pots. So I'm going to say this is the next day. That's a really long day otherwise.
I think it's just a really long day. We've had all these little short chapters where like stuff has been happening and they're coming rapid fire, but I don't.
Did they like beat Elaine and then they were like, okay, now that you're finished with your beating, like it's
Go
time
wash
to
pots.
time to do your accepted test.
Totally.
Because this is just like hours. I think it's only one day.
Okay, yeah, Matt's chap just happened a day after, and
That's a good point, Mackenzie. Matt has slept.
and they show up with rings on hands. So,
Oh yeah.
like when they give him the papers, he notices that they all are wearing the rings and all have very clean hands.
So that must be the day that's actually happens after their tests.
Yeah. I think it suffices that it's about 24 hours.
Yeah.
That all this stuff happens.
And there's not a lot of sleeping. Like either there's none or there's very little.
Well, this
sleeping.
is like, the middle of the night.
Egwene does. The next thing she says, Shiriam says the hour waits on no woman. And Egwene basically says, like, well, I haven't even slept. Like, can I just, like, take a nap before we do this? She's like, nah.
Nope.
Nope. You're doing this now, kid.
And that's where you get the gut the fish line, the next paragraph down.
Yeah. Egwene thinks about how Nynaeve hasn't said literally anything about the test other than, I hate Aes Sedai. That's all she'll say about it. So Egwene doesn't know what to expect.
Just that it pissed Nynaeve off. But that's easy.
Yeah.
But Nynaeve's experience sucked. And we find out that Elaine has already been put through them.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So whatever traumatized Elaine, that has already happened, and she's now headed to Nynaeve's room to cry her eyes out.
And I think that's why we see Elida being kind of impatient here, is because she was only there for Elaine.
Right, yeah. Now she's like, I have to do this whole thing again for this bitch that I don't even like.
Exactly.
So Shiriam leads Egwene away with no chance to put her all the stuff that Varen just gave her. So she's clutching it in her arms and leads her down deep below the tower into one of these kind of secret chambers. A great domed chamber. Elida's all pissed that she has had to stand around for a minute.
Be easy, Elida.
She's mad about everything. Lamps on tall stands illumined the chamber, and what sat centered under the dome, 3 rounded silver arches, just tall enough to walk under, sitting on a thick silver ring with their ends touching where they joined it. The Aes Sedai sat cross-legged on the bare rock before each of the spots where the arches joined the ring, all 3 wearing their shawls. Alana was the sister of the green Aja, but she did not know the yellow sister, or the white. So there's 3 women at the 3 points where I'm imagining a triangle of, like, 3 circles that are placed into a triangle. So,
I always thought it
Right.
was like a circle with like 3 points connected by archways.
like a peace sign?
Kind of, yeah.
More like a triangle inside a circle. I don't even know how to...
3 rounded silver arches, sitting on a thick silver ring with their ends touching where they joined it.
Okay, so there's a
That's all we
circle
get,
with
I
3
think.
points around. There's 3 points on a circle
Right.
where the arches are touching, and there's an Aes Sedai sitting at each of those intersections.
Exactly. And so you step through the archway to enter the inside of the circle.
Oh yeah, good art. Good art. It's not on a ring. It's not perfect, but it's good enough.
Yeah, something like that.
And so when you step through one of those archways, you disappear. And then when you step back out, you actually come back out of that circle. So you can actually never really be inside that circle.
Yeah.
Because that's where the dream world is.
Right.
Which also, if you think about it, I have to wonder if maybe there's only one edge on those archways.
Probably. We can headcanon that, because that makes sense.
I also had to wonder, I was thinking about the scrubbing of the pots, and I have to wonder if maybe the cleansing of the pots and the cleansing of the White Tower have some sort of allegory or analogy. Just like when they're in the tower, they're constantly trying to scrub these never-ending dirty pots that the Aes Sedai keep handing them. At the same time, they're handing them this like mess of black Aja, and they're constantly trying to clean up after it.
Scrub out the grease of the black
It
Aja.
could be. I don't know. It's just work.
It was just I know it's probably not that at all, but all right, so where were we? I think we were talking about Elida being a bit of a bitch. So
Right.
I'll have to narrow it down.
Surprise! I read the description of the 3 arch Terangriel, and next thing I have is that Egwene would have to face her fears 3 times. Right there. It's 245 in the paperback. We all probably are looking at a different version, though.
I'm in the paperback.
Awesome.
I'm on 245. Yeah. Right, and Bambi was saying that these are the Ajas. The Ajas that are there are also the ones that first recruit Egwene when she's quasi-Amerlin later.
Yeah, I wonder if there's any relationship between those. If it's just like the groups that are bringing her into the tower, and it's just a parallel mirror.
Maybe a little. I think they're kind of roughly allies in the hall. The yellow, white, green, and blue, but blue's not represented here.
I have to wonder if it's just symbolism.
It could be.
That he's sticking with those Ajas, or if it's just a coincidence. And just the way the politics work.
Yeah, maybe. I would think that the green would suspect that and want Nynaeve and Egwene, and suspect that they would be tempted by green. Although Nynaeve picks yellow. And Egwene sees in this chapter that she would have chosen green in this possible future.
Right.
Because her keeper's for green.
Yeah, she's the battle Aja. I mean, I think that's even once in this reality when she is raised to Amerlin, although she's sort of the perfect Aes Sedai and has aspects of them all, I would definitely call her a green.
Yeah, that's what she would have chosen
For
if she ever had the chance.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, just her, the way she shames the battle Aja by just like in the Battle of the White Tower, and the head of the battle Aja was like, I'm pathetic.
Basically.
So we see next Shiriam explains how kind of the system works to Egwene. I have it all highlighted. I don't know if you guys want me to read it.
That's exactly the same spiel as she gives to Nynaeve and presumably every other girl who passes through here.
Yeah. Basically that she can refuse, and she can do that 3 times, but if she enters one of the arches and then refuses, she gets kicked out of the tower.
It's a lot of complicated rules that never really come into play.
If she refuses 3 times, she gets kicked out of the tower. Yeah, none of these ever come into play.
Because no one ever refuses. If you go into the arches, you go into the arches. Like, there's no...
Although Shiriam said the first time she was summoned to be raised, she refused. She was too afraid.
I feel like that gives us some insight into her character.
Mm-hmm.
Very hesitant.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, I can see that.
Doesn't really follow through all that well.
I don't know. I feel like if I had to do this, I would probably be pretty cautious. Sometimes people go in and they just don't come out, and no one knows why or what happened.
She didn't know that the first time she refused. She hadn't been told that people die on the inside. They're not told that until after they commit to going through.
Didn't Egwene have the thought in the previous chapter that no one had ever told her what happened to the accepted who'd failed the test?
Mm-hmm. I think it's the Aes Sedai who failed the test, but yeah.
Or in a parallel dream world.
Possibly living in a parallel universe.
Right. Like, Nynaeve is, like, really unusual when she does her Aes Sedai test because they want to fail her even though she survived.
I mean, but they say they can't.
That's
You know,
much
it's like
later.
she made it. Like that's.
No, they totally vote on whether or not she's going to fail.
Oh, for the Aes Sedai test, not for the.
Yeah, for the Aes Sedai test. Yeah. Right, because usually coming back is passing, but with Nynaeve, they're like, nah, I don't know.
What happened there? I don't quite remember that.
It's because she breaks all the rules.
Oh, because she didn't remain calm.
Yeah, she like gets pissed, and they're like, you failed because you got pissed.
Yeah.
She's like, but that's stupid.
It's like I used the weaves.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, I got what I needed to get done, and I didn't die. Mission accomplished.
Yeah, Nynaeve doesn't mess around. She's just like, I don't need to stay calm. I can just kick ass.
Right? Yeah.
In her first accepted test, when she just forces a doorway open,
Yeah.
the way back will come but once.
Yeah.
Except for Nynaeve.
Unless you're ridiculously powerful.
Yeah. In which case, the way will come back as often as you damn well please it will.
No door, make one.
Matt has the same philosophy.
Yeah, totally.
Need a door?
There's no door. I'll just cut one.
Fireworks.
Yeah, I'll blow one up.
And then we see Elida saying she should not be given the chance. I do not care what her potential is, all that. And Shiriam says, you were not so adamant about Elaine, even though they're in trouble for the same thing. I'm adding that last part.
Mm-hmm.
And then they stare at each other for a long time.
Sniffing.
It's really tense in there.
She's very anti-Egwene and very pro-Elaine because of her... Well, she thinks Egwene has connections to Matt and is hiding things from her. And also is getting Elaine into danger.
And Rand.
Did I say Matt? I meant
Yeah.
Rand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so she sees that connection. And I've seen a bunch of little instances of her putting together sort of what's going on. That Moraine and the Amyrlin, Suan, and these three girls, and Matt and Rand and Two Rivers. And she's sort of putting all the pieces together in her head.
It's interesting that Elida is an antagonist toward Egwene here in this scene, and in through the third ring, she's also Black Aja.
Right, which we know is not real and not true.
Yes, but it tells
Right.
us that it could be soon, perhaps. It had the possibility of happening.
Right.
Yeah, I always thought it was proof that these are alternate realities, mere dream worlds of alternate realities is how I always saw these.
Yeah, and a lot of
If they
things are
are.
similar.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot when we get there, but if Egwene was raised to Amyrlin and Elida wasn't, that still means something happened to Swan, who's a young woman, really. She's like in her 40s.
Right.
And with slowing, she could live to be 300.
Yeah, something still happened. But for some reason, Egwene was raised instead of Elida. Thought that was
Right.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Probably for the same reasons.
I could make up a story about the Shan Chan attacking and capturing Suan and Egwene leading a charge and stopping them.
Right.
And
Or just the
making
tower never split, like Swan was deposed.
the tower never split and
Yeah.
the Shan Chan attacked or something like that.
Right. Right. The way Elida gets captured, maybe that happened to Swan, and Egwene blasted her out of the sky. And yeah, there's lots of ways that could have gone down.
Totally.
The alternate reality where Hammer killed Gawain.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed
God,
that.
That would have been great.
Oh, I'm just
Oh.
saying, like, if that happened, perhaps Elida's
yeah.
faction wouldn't have. Well, it's just.
Who knows?
I'm just
Oh,
speculating.
Yeah. We're going off on a deep end here.
Total speculation about. Well, I mean, we're in alternate realities, which is where like we can all like go deep into the speculation.
It is fun to think about when you see these situations, like what would had to have happened for this reality to.
What does it mean that these people? Well, and my assumption, like Elida being black in this alternate reality, is that it's a whole different timeline. That she's been, that in that timeline, Elida was black from very early on.
Yeah, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It could have just also been like because Egwene's thinking about the black and she hates Elida, and the Tirangriel just weaves that into this version. It doesn't have to be real. It just has to reflect her fears.
That's very true. And the fact that this is, a dream-based Tirangriel means that, we know you can shape the world of dreams with your thoughts.
It can create a reality, but
Yeah.
That's a good point, Aradia. It might not be even a possible future. It might just be like it happens in Teleran Riyadh because that's the only way to make it all real. But it, reads what Egwene is afraid of and puts it in front of her. It's like
Exactly.
a holodeck in Star Trek.
Right. So Elida sniffs in disdain because that's what they do.
Egwene gets naked and hands over the papers. And so the papers are definitely something I wanted to talk about. Do you think anyone reads them while she's in the ter'angreal?
I don't think so. I don't think so because Shiriam would already know what's in them because she's black. She already knows, well, presumably, she already knows that information is being handed over to the girls because Varen knows. I mean, the whole, like, conflicted orders thing. So Shiriam doesn't need to read the lists, and everyone else is busy.
What about Elida?
Oh, because Elida's not actually powering the ter'angreal.
And she's the one who hands the papers back to Egwene.
Elida could read them, but we never see any proof that she did. Like, she never comments on it or uses that.
I'm just adding to my theory that Elida is putting together all the little clues that are leading up to the deposition of Suan. And I think part of that is she may be reading about this information the girls have.
Fair.
And
Fair.
we see that she encounters Alviarin pops in to the chamber right afterwards. I can see them conspiring.
Or maybe I could also see the black kind of feeding Elida enough information to sow chaos.
Totally.
Elida doesn't need to be black.
No, not at all.
Right.
For that to happen. It's still a advantageous strategy for them.
They like being the keepers.
Yeah, I wanted to think Shiriam had read the papers, but you're right, she wouldn't have to. She would have already been briefed on this.
Exactly.
She was at the meeting where they decided what to give Egwene. Or, I can't say that for sure.
Not necessarily, yeah, because they have such a closed, like, information loop, but it seems like she would have been briefed. Like, oh yeah, by the way, she's on your trail, but don't worry, because we've got misinformation headed her way.
Yeah.
The other thing that was in that pouch and in the group of papers was the Stone Ring Dream and ter'angreal.
Yeah.
That's what matters.
Yep.
That's why this whole situation goes down.
And that tells us a lot about the two ter'angreal, because we know that this resonance that causes all sorts of issues only happens between those two ter'angreal when they're in close proximity, if they are related to each other.
And I think it's Alana who says, I've only seen anything like this happen once before, and it was when we had two ter'angreal that did something similar in the same room at the same time.
Nodding.
Yeah. So that tells us that.
Yep, that's in the next chapter.
And that tells us an awful lot about these testing ter'angreal, because we know that they basically do the same thing as the Twisted Stone ter'angreal, which is take you to the world of dreams.
I think in the chapter when we were talking about Nynaeve's testing, we talked for a long time about what is on the other side of the testing ter'angreal and how that works. And this is conclusive that it's all world of dreams. It's not an alternate reality.
Agreed.
Although it's easy to think of it that way.
Well, and I often think of the world of dreams as encompassing a mirror image of all the possible realities.
Okay.
So it's not another reality, but it could be a reflection of another reality, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Right, because it's not just straight up Tel-Iran Riyadh. It's like something a little bit more corralled than that.
It seems like the ter'angreal make a dream shard, but there are characters in it.
It's something between a dream shard and an alternate reality and a reflection of reality and full-on Tel-Iran Riyadh. Like, it's some strange animal in that general menagerie, I think.
I think that's right.
And a nightmare, yeah.
Yeah, and it's all powered by this big old fancy ter'angreal that the Aes Sedai, who knew what they were doing, made. So, now why they'd build something like this, I'm not really sure. I was wondering if maybe it's like you go in to have a vacation, but like your attitude, because it's dream related, your attitude when going in is what affects what you see. And if you're told you're going to go see your 3 biggest fears, that's what you end up seeing. But like Aes Sedai in the Age of Legends were like, I'm going to go to an island in Hawaii, and they'd like pop in and be like,
yeah, this would be a great tool for like not just that, but you could practice weaves or something. Like you could go in there and be like, this is a training game.
A total holodeck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a holodeck.
Or maybe it's the people who are powering it that like are the ones who determine what kind of vacation you're going to get.
Could be.
Right, but a woman's fears are her own. Like, they affect the Aes Sedai test really directly, but I think this test is more like they're just supplying power to the ter'angreal.
Agreed.
But yeah, I like the idea that the attitude you take into it shapes the vision that you experience. I mean, it'd be great for like practicing a new skill. You know, you could go like learn how to surf and it would be safe or something.
Sounds fun.
And it may be like there was some way to have the way back come at will, you know, instead of just having it come once, you could just like call up an exit whenever you wanted it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe somehow that's how Nynaeve got back. She like tapped into that.
I like it.
Yeah, I like it.
So they're kind of powering up the arches, although I guess these women have been sitting there for hours already because they just did Elaine's test and then march Egwene in.
We definitely have a debate about how long the test is. And I think we came to the conclusion that it's like it's long enough for someone to go fetch somebody and come back. So it's minutes, but it's probably not hours.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little last time. Like, if a woman doesn't come out, how long do they wait? Like, when do you shut it off? I don't think we ever find out, but there must be some kind of understanding that, like...
It was allowed to grow quiet.
Yeah.
Well, why?
Yeah, right. When do you decide?
Well, presumably if the woman died, then they would have felt like the loss of like her life spark on the other side. But if she chose to stay, then who knows?
Yeah, I'm not even sure they have any knowledge of like what's going on. Like, I don't feel like they'd lose her life spark at all. I feel like they just wait a certain amount of time and nobody would come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe, probably.
And it doesn't matter if you're dead or just staying.
And like, they didn't stop powering the thing when, like, Nynaeve's door closed.
Yeah, that's the one thing that gets me, because like,
so they don't seem to have control over or knowledge of.
It's not like when the door opens and closes, they're like, okay, that's it, it's done, let's depower it.
Yeah.
Even though the door comes once.
Unless you're Nynaeve.
Right.
As Egwene's getting ready, Alana notices the resonance, she says, like an echo. Yeah. Shirya asks if it's a problem, and Alana says no.
Do you think there's a reason it only gets really bad on the third time through, as opposed to the first two times?
I wondered about that and speculated in my mind while I was reading, but I can't think of any reason that the third test itself would affect what happens to the ter'angreal. I think maybe just like a singing bowl, like the longer you power it, the longer it resonates, the like louder and louder it just like continues to
sort of exponential growth, where it was like barely there the first two times and then explodes on the third.
So she turns it on, and that's like touching the singing bowl, and then it's just
and it does seem like the third vision is longer than the first two.
It's much longer.
Yeah. Certainly written longer.
And also she passes out in the third vision. She gets knocked on the head and actually passes out.
Oh, yeah.
And also she, between the second and third passes, when she learns about the ability to be turned. And so she's like way more freaked out about the Dark Friends and the Black Aja and all that on her third pass. And that's when the voice starts coming in and talking to her. That's not the usual voice.
I always thought that was more of an effect rather than a cause, that basically because there was this resonance going on, the ter'angreal didn't wipe her memory as well as it should have. And so she was actually able to remember like the things that were frightening her before she entered.
That's kind of what I thought, that
fair.
because it's malfunctioning. But now I'm thinking when she's in the second arch and she's talking to Rand, and Rand says they can turn me, like he's giving her information that she didn't already have. So fake Teleran Riyadh creation Rand is telling Egwene something that she didn't already know.
Well, I think it's a reflection. That's what I'm saying. It's a reflection of a reality.
Yeah.
And so information can come from that reality that, even though it's constructed from her head, it also has a reflection of something that's real. So you can get real information out of it.
And then she comes out and she's like, Shirya, is that a real thing? And she's like, yeah, it's a real thing. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Now go face your fears.
Yeah. Don't worry about it. Go worry about something else.
And bam, all of a sudden she's being turned. Or if she's about to be.
It is a good point that, like, right then, that's her biggest fear when she enters and then she encounters that particular situation.
Yeah.
I like the standing wave theory. That's all I'm trying to say.
The first time, Shiriam said, is for what was. The way back will come but once. Be steadfast. Because I think we pretty much covered everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this, again, we've talked about how this is the first time is for the past, the second time is for the present, the third time is for the future. So this is like, if her life hadn't changed in the past, this is where she would be now, is sort of my interpretation of it.
Mm-hmm.
Egwene took a deep breath and stepped forward, through the arch and into the glow. Light swallowed her whole, and Rand tells her that James Daughtry stopped by and he heard news from a peddler.
What if that peddler is still Fane?
Maybe. Maybe not.
Maybe
Probably not.
Probably.
Could be any peddler. But if there's no Winter Night, which there clearly wasn't in this reality, then they would have never, Fane would still be coming down to the Two Rivers.
She's married Rand, and she has an infant daughter named Joya. And Rand comes back with this news that everybody's fighting the Sand Chan or something like that.
The Shawkin?
It's what would have happened if they hadn't gone to Falma. Like, this is what would have happened if Rand hadn't been there to fight that battle. This is how the Shan-Shan conquest would have looked to rural Andor.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, if none of that stuff had happened, and Egwene and Rand had been married shortly after the events at the beginning of the Eye of the World, they could easily have an infant daughter named Joya just like a year later, like now.
Well, and Joya, remember she like gets really pissed off because one of the Dark Friends has the name Joya, like Joya Bayar,
Right.
I think her name is.
She has
So
my daughter's name. Yeah, Joya Bayar.
B-Y-I-R.
It's one of those names.
Bayar is how it's pronounced in the audiobooks.
Ah,
Joya Bayar. And so often we see that like you can use your knowledge to change. These visions aren't prophetic. They're not locked in.
no.
And I think that's actually a good foreshadowing for Avienda's vision when she goes through changes the Terran-Grial and the Aiel Waste in Ruidian. That she sees something of the future, but it can be changed.
Right. It's also appropriate, just the name Joy, like Joya. Like, Egwene's life was going to be so happy and joyful and yay. And then, nope. Nope, that's rejected. That's not happening.
Well, it looks like even in this reality, the young couple is kind of fated to do badly. Rand's having channeling sickness.
I think it's honestly no. I think it's the opposite. I think all right. So here's the issue with channeling sickness: is channeling sickness happens after you channel. He's getting headaches
Randomly.
before something happens. Like the headaches are coming before the lightning strikes.
Yeah.
So
Right. It's more like wilder struggles, like we see with Nynaeve or something. Except
That
it's
makes
pain
sense.
rather than anger.
right. I often wonder if it's a different manifestation of his madness or something like that.
It could be. I'll read this little part.
Okay.
It's probably enlightening. When Rand's head hurt, strange things happened soon after. Lightning out of a clear sky, smashing to bits a huge oak stump he had been working 2 days to root out, where he and Tam were clearing a new field. Storms that Nynaeve did not hear, coming when she listened to the wind. Wildfires in the forest. And the deeper his pain grew, the worse what followed.
So I assume that like basically his madness was giving him these headaches or affecting him in some ways, and then
Or some kind of wilder
Yeah.
block thing.
it could be that.
Yeah.
And I noticed that it's all fire, which, like, we know Rand is really talented with fire. It's like lightning and fire. Like, this is definitely him channeling as he would have channeled, just with, like, more of a wilder, blocked sort of
That's a good
bent,
catch.
but still his talent is the same.
Totally. And we see him doing things like this in his flicker portal stone worlds that he lives life with Egwene and struggles with various forms of channeling sickness and madness. This very much could be one of his alternate portal world realities.
Yeah, it seems like
Yeah.
it. It seems very similar
Totally.
to one of the lives he lived.
And it would be pretty cool if they both like experienced the same alternate reality.
We also see that, like in Rand's vision in the Portal Stones, Egwene seems to be able to, and she knows that she's capable of keeping Rand well for quite a while. And I mean, at this point, he's got Nynaeve and Egwene, who are both talented female channelers that are keeping him well.
Totally.
And in his in one of his Portal Stone lives, they keep him well for a long time. But eventually, things go wrong, of course.
Which really proves, like, how random it is, like, the way that the madness manifests in any given man, even in Rand, and all these different variations. He always learns to channel around the same time, but then lasts any number of years and degrades in any number of different ways. Like, it's
Sure.
really
Yeah.
random how that's going to play out.
Sometimes he like rots gangrenous green, like
Yeah,
limbs
he's
fall off and stuff like
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Sometimes he's just mad. Sometimes it's headaches, killing headaches. It's all sorts of different stuff.
Yeah.
Here's a question. Egwene's studying to replace Nynaeve in this particular alternate reality. And I've thought about this before, but like they're only a couple of years apart.
yeah.
It doesn't seem like it would make a lot of sense to have two people who were that close as a replacement, unless Nynaeve was going to go somewhere else to another village or something like that.
And that I think that's a
Yeah.
possibility. That if one village can produce several talented wisdoms, then, you know, like when Nynaeve leaves, she just sends a message to another wisdom, be like, look after Emmons Field while I'm gone. I'll be back.
Maybe she like will
From Devon Ride or something
yeah,
like
all
that.
of Two Rivers, I was going to say.
Yeah, in the Eye of the World, Egwene is all like ready to up and travel. So maybe Nynaeve was planning on doing that in this alternate reality.
That's right. In Eye of the World, Egwene has the thought or something that when she finishes her training, she'll probably get sent to another, away from Emmons Field.
And she gets in a fight with Rand about it because she's like, yeah, I want to
That's
travel.
right.
I don't know if I want to be wisdom. And he's like, what? You don't want to marry me? I'm so sad.
But that's why I find the language here so interesting, because here it implies that she's replacing Nynaeve as wisdom in the Two Rivers.
Yeah,
Which is
not what I
it's
would
an
have
odd
expected.
timing. RJ, fail. Just going to declare it a fail.
I don't know how hard we want to tangent here, but that
Very
also
hard.
brings me back, because we've had this
Tangent me hard,
conversation
Patrick.
about this a little before, that if Nynaeve and Egwene are both powerful channelers and they live their lives in the Two Rivers, Moraine never comes, none of these events in the Eye of the World ever happen, how long do they live? And if so, are there random villages in Randland where there's like a 170-year-old woman who's just been healing the sick for that long?
I think that happens.
Yeah,
Can
presumably.
wilders slow? I would think so. Why not, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Almira, old lady Almira would be,
Yeah.
over the hill.
250 years
Right.
old and still swinging a club around.
Yeah, basically.
With her gray hair and young face.
Yeah. People would ask her how old she is, and she'd just hit them.
Yeah, no, that's part of why when they meet the kin, that's when Nynaeve gets the revelation. Like, that's why everyone in the Two Rivers always thought she was way too young for her station, was because she had started to slow,
Right.
like in her late teens. So even as a 26-year-old, she looked like 18, and no one could take her seriously.
Yeah.
At least that's what she puts together in her head in that scene.
And that's why Moraine, one of the reasons Moraine spots her pretty quick is she's like, you're way too young to be the wisdom.
Right, right.
Perhaps there may be some village wisdom in that, like, oh, this woman is actually reading the wind and actually slowing. Like, maybe there's some sort of, even if they're not, like, aware it's somebody channeling, they know that, like,
There seems to be some awareness of that. Like,
Yeah.
some women are good at forecasting the weather by, like, you know, how the birds are acting and
and that seems to be, like,
predicting patterns and things like that. But some women can just do it. Like, there's some women who are, like,
Mhm.
born to do it, and they seem to know that. But that seems to be all.
It's
you
like
know?
automatic promotion to wisdom.
Yeah. Egwene gets up and sees, as she's about to see what she can do for Rand to help his headache, and she kind of becomes aware that she's that she's not where she's supposed to be, or she says, no, this is what I want. This is what I want. When she hears the way back will come but once, be steadfast. And she asks, why can't I have this too? Although she did not understand her own words. I highlighted this because I always
Yeah.
think about this when I think about the series, that Rand says the sweetest thing ever, which is, what is it you want, Egwene? Rand asked. If it's anything I can get you, you know I will. If I can't get it, I'll make it.
Yeah.
That is
He's
very
very
sweet.
devoted to her.
Oh, one more thing that just to go back, because
Yeah.
this isn't a long enough episode. Egwene is healing better than Nynaeve in this alternate reality.
I also had that highlighted because that's weird.
Yeah, she's sometimes when Nynaeve isn't successful, Egwene is.
And like she's weaker and she's going to be drawn to the green. Like how is she beating Nynaeve at the yellows game?
I don't know. We could speculate about it, but it may be that she's more aware of what she's doing, or maybe that if you have two Wilders where one fails, the other one doesn't because it's like random chance,
Maybe Nynaeve's not pissed enough and like it gives up because she's like not angry and is like, well, I guess I'm lost this person, and then Egwene.
But losing people makes her angry.
I know, that's why it's not a good theory.
Yeah, maybe it's just because it's Egwene's vision, and so of course she would be beating Nynaeve.
Right.
Power struggle.
Or it could be an alternate version of Nynaeve who's not good at healing.
Could be.
Or not as good at healing.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with my random chance theory. Like if they both have a 10% chance to use a healing weave unknowingly, then if Nynaeve doesn't, maybe Egwene will. Not because she's better, but because you get to roll the die twice rather than once.
Sure. You have advantage.
Rolling with advantage. Yeah, basically. Yeah, I like that. Just had to point it out.
No, I definitely wanted. I was like going to stop Patrick if you didn't.
Nice.
That's a really important point there with the healing, and also her like drive. There's also I have to learn. Like that is a consistent in Egwene everywhere. She has to learn as much as she can, as quickly as she can.
That's true. She's not very good at giving up.
Yeah. And she's learning from Nynaeve, who's like top of the game, right? So if she's going to improve over her teacher, she's going to be really damn good.
Hopefully, yeah.
Rand's headache gets worse and worse, and he's like falling to his knees and screaming while the archway appears, waiting for her.
Which, like, what could she even do? Like, she thinks she could do something, but there's no guarantee she could have done anything.
I mean, she could have delayed it a little bit, maybe. She has the ability to heal.
She does a bit in Rand's Portal Stone, one of Rand's Portal Stone realities.
Sure. But
True.
She may not have been successful here, or she may have been.
Yeah.
But the test is, of course, that she has to abandon him, that she has this drive to save Rand, and the portals constantly force her to abandon him 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the first.
Fail, abandon, betray.
Exactly. I like that.
Or abandon, fail, betray. Yeah, I bolded it when she comes out and she's yelling at the Eyes to Die, like, is that all there is for me? And I think it's abandon, betray, fail, I think is the order she puts it in. Yeah, it's badass.
She stiffened her back and kept walking, but she could not keep the tears from rolling down her cheeks. Rand's groans built to a scream, drowning Joya's laughter. From the corner of her eye, Egwene saw Tam coming, running as hard as he could. He can't help, she thought, and tears became racking sobs. There is nothing he can do, but I could. I could. She stepped into the light and was consumed.
So the first time, she can't save his life. That's her failure the first time, is she can't save his life.
Yeah, or she thinks she could have, but she doesn't.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And then the second time, she fails to kill him.
Right, she fails to save his soul, because he's about to get turned.
And the third time,
she fails at both, because he's about to be gentled. She can't save his soul or his life.
I kind of wanted to note here, because each time it seems unique, that Elida says, "You are washed clean of what sin you may have done, and of those done against you. You are washed clean of what crime you may have committed, and of those committed against you. You come to us washed clean and pure, in heart and soul."
And we had an interesting time talking about that during Nynaeve's training. All the various cleansing messages that they said as you came out of the archways. I know they changed for each 3 of the tests.
Yeah, they seem to apply at least vaguely to each one of the 3 is different. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Related to past, present, future.
Right.
She has the thought, can water wash away what I just did?
It's symbolic water coming out of a silver chalice.
Baptism, anybody?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Her name was Joya, she told Shiriam between sobs. Joya, nothing can be worth what I just... There's a price to become Aes Sedai, Shiriam replied, but sympathy was back in her eyes. There's always a price.
Always. Of course, that's a black Aja, I think, again, regretting.
I'd like to think that the second time she says that there's a price, she is talking about something else.
Absolutely.
But I don't know. The headcanon on that one.
I think she's definitely talking about a price to power, which she became black in order to gain power, and that's the price for it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Her and
sure.
Shiriam have a short conversation where she asks Shiriam if it's real or was it a dream. And Shiriam says nobody knows, in short.
Well, it's in that weird half space between reality and...
Shiriam says she doesn't believe that it's real,
Yeah.
but that the danger is.
I agree with her.
Right.
Oh, what I forgot to say before. Sorry. That reminds me. Egwene gets hit in the head hard, right, with a piece of wood in the third arch. But when she comes out and Shiriam delves her, she's fine. So she didn't just have a concussion or anything. She's not bleeding.
Well, yeah, and that is also one of the weird things about these dream worlds is, like, sometimes the injuries are real.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they're not.
Egwene walks out with the thorns still stuck in her.
Right. Nynaeve.
Oh, yeah, Nynaeve.
Nynaeve.
They're like, well, that's never happened before.
There's very inconsistent rules for how damaged you are in the waking world.
Hmm.
One of the coolest things about the thorns is when she pulls them out and they fade away to nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that means...
That happens too when Rand picks up the little figurine with the sword in Eye of the World, right? He pulls it out and it vanishes when he drops it.
Oh, yeah.
And that's in a dream shard with Ishii.
Dream
It's
shards.
like it's real as long as it's in your body, but then as soon as it's out of your body, it's like,
Right.
no.
Bambi, that's what I thought about Nynaeve's test when we were talking about the thorns in that episode. That she makes it real because she tries to channel, and the way she tries to channel is by envisioning these thorny plant.
Mm-hmm.
So she like forces it into reality. She stabs herself with her mind.
Why are you stabbing yourself? Why are you stabbing yourself?
Stop stabbing yourself.
And second arch.
Yeah. The second time is for what is.
The way back will come but once.
Whatever happens, it can't be worse than the last time.
There's nothing that can be worse than the first time.
Nope,
like,
nope, this is
child.
pretty horrible.
Foolish pup.
She stared down at her dress, blue silk sewn with pearls, all dusty and torn. Her head came up, and she took in the ruins of a great palace around her, the royal palace of Andor, in Camelin. She knew that, and wanted to scream.
That next line really hit me pretty deep. The world was not the way she wanted it. No way that she could think of without wanting to cry. Just like, yeah, sometimes these days that's the way I feel.
Yeah.
Well,
And all her tears are gone. It's just the world's too horrible.
At
Yep.
least a little better off than Trollocs, than losing the last battle, I think that's what this is here.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, we see Camelin get invaded during the last battle, and this is sort of a similar invasion that goes really badly.
Camelin, well, the forces of the light lose.
Yeah, exactly.
It is what it looks
Right.
like is happening.
And it looks
Mhm.
like Rand is killed and all that kind of stuff.
Well, he's about to be killed.
Egwene has been raised to Aes Sedai in this one, it looks like. Because I at least had the thought that she's wearing a blue silk dress sewn with pearls, and she's in Camelin. So I assume that she's been raised, right? No Accepted would be walking around like that.
Yeah, it doesn't say specifically, but I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Nodding.
Not sure how much of this to read. I'll read this little clip. She climbed one of the piles of rubble and peered into the curving streets of the inner city. As far as she could see in every direction lay ruin and desolation, buildings that looked as if they had been torn apart by madmen, thick plumes of smoke rising from fires still burning. There were people in the streets, bands of armed men prowling, searching, and Trollocs. The men shied away from the Trollocs, and the Trollocs snarled at them and laughed, harsh guttural laughter, but they knew each other, worked together. A Myrddraal came striding down the street, yelling at them to hunt, and to find him specifically.
Which, of course, is Rand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing that something, there was a battle. Perhaps he was struck down. Rubble came down on top of him. It's actually a question. Why doesn't he channel to kill himself?
He's afraid to. He's afraid that he'll lose control of himself.
Oh, that's right, because he's fighting off the madness.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
So he can't LTT himself because of LTT.
No, yeah, it's almost a shame because, well, you know.
The Catch-22 LTT style.
The LTT, or we could call it the Eldrine in this situation.
pulling an Eldrine.
We'll see who lost this battle.
We call it a Pyrrhic victory.
The nuclear option. Oh, I was going to say we also see the Great Serpent Ring on one of her fingers, but that doesn't mean that she's been raised to Aes Sedai
That's
necessarily.
actually not her finger. That's the dead woman she sees in the rubble.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah, she just walks over a dead body and is like, yep, I don't even notice it's an Aes Sedai because I'm that traumatized.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there's been a major battle. Channeling decimated the city. Lots of dead Aes Sedai.
She's wandering through, trying to stay away from the shadow spawn, and Rand lay with a heavy beam pinning him across the waist, his legs hidden beneath the stone blocks that filled half the room. Dust and sweat coated his face. He opened his eyes when she came near him. "You came back." He forced the words out in a hoarse rasp. "I was afraid." "No matter. You have to help me." And Egwene says she's not powerful enough to lift all of the rubble at once, and if she shifts it, then she'll probably destroy the building and kill them both.
Like pick up sticks.
But that's not what he means by help.
That's true.
Right.
Well, that's what she suggests, but you're right.
Because I don't think, even if she got the beam off of him, I think the madness is going to take him over at any moment. I think he's lost control and that he's going to die. He's going to go mad here.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of time, and he wants to be killed before he loses control of his mind.
Mm-hmm. Because he says that he could move everything himself, but that would require channeling, and so it's moot.
She asks, "How can I help you then, if you can't do it and I can't do it?" "The dagger," he whispered. His hand made a painful journey back to his chest. "Here, in the heart. Kill me." Because he explains that if the Murdral finds him, they'll capture him and turn him. So he can't be...
This is where we learn about turning.
Right.
Yeah, and so this explanation of the Circle of 13 Murdral and 13 Aes Sedai is how she learns about this little trick to turn channelers to the dark side, to the shadow.
And I had a thought. We don't actually know if Rand ever declared himself dragon in this version. Like, obviously he's being hunted as the Dragon Reborn, but we don't actually know where he's at in his arc. Like, did Falma happen? Did the Stone of Tyr happen? Like, we have no idea where we're at or if he ever declared himself. Not that that matters, but I just thought about it.
Yeah, my thought was this is a future based on the way things are. Like, so the last one was a future based on the way things were.
Uh-huh.
And so this future is sort of the path they're currently on. So I assume
he's declared himself.
Yeah, so I think he's declared himself, and he's fighting as the Dragon
Okay.
Reborn.
That also explains why they would be searching for Rand specifically.
Yeah,
You
although,
know?
I mean, clearly they've been hunting him for quite some time.
Yes.
But I would assume that he was leading a battle in the city of Camelin, and that it went poorly.
Rand explains that if she doesn't kill him, they'll turn him, and she says she can't.
I thought it was particularly cruel that she kicks the knife away from him.
So that he can't kill himself.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it's so sad. It's just like, really? Really?
Just scoot the knife a little closer. He's almost got it.
So this one ends with Rand desperately begging Egwene to murder him so that he won't be turned to the dark.
She's like, nope.
And then the arch appears.
I was kind of curious about the language as they leave the arch. The first one, she steps into the light and was consumed. This one, the light burned her to ash.
The third one is more intense. I don't remember the exact wording, but...
Light plucked her
Picks her
apart, fiber by fiber.
by fiber.
Sliced the hair.
Slice the fiber. Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Light plucked her apart, fiber by fiber, sliced the fibers to hairs, split the hairs to wisps of nothing. All drifted apart on the light, forever. Ah, so badass. We're not even there yet. It's so badass.
Leaving the portal world almost like destroys their body in that world.
Yeah. It is a little odd that it ramps up in intensity each time. I wonder if it has any meaning, or if it has to do with what's happening with the resonance.
Did that happen with Nynaeve? Did it get described like that for Nynaeve?
I don't think so.
Excellent question. I don't know.
I have to go back and look.
Yeah, I don't think so either, but I'm not positive.
I think the last one, at least, is caused by the resonance. The being pulled apart slowly, as opposed to just being consumed.
I could buy that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because everything's all haywire for that one.
So she steps out and confronts Shiriam about the 13 and 13 turning. Do we have a name for that? Just turning channelers?
Turning, yeah.
Just turning with a capital T. And she's washed clean of false pride and false ambition.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Which is always very odd, because it's it's an odd thing. Like, her pride was not letting Rand kill himself. Her ambition was not killing him. I don't know. It's weird.
I always thought maybe the ambition was leaving whatever is in the portal world to come back and be Aes Sedai. But I guess it's more false ambition, so I don't really know.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how that one applied exactly.
I don't think it applies in every situation. I think it's a bit of a formality, because it's the same words for every single testing.
Right. It's like the test is supposed to face you with something that has to do with your ambitions, but in this case it's also bent around Rand that doesn't really seem applicable.
I wonder if his Ta'veren nature bends the realities.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how she's having these really profound things, but they're all about Rand, which is the whole thing's kind of failing the Betrayal test, but at the same time he's the dragon, so he's more than a man, so I can let that go. But it is, I do wonder if the fact that he's Ta'veren is bending her test to be less the way it is for the average accepted passing through. I mean, not even taking the other Turin into account.
And in some of these visions, he's the MacGuffin. He's not like a character. He's just she's dealing with a whole bunch of other Aes Sedai, and he's just the thing she's trying to save or get. He's a pretty inanimate object in.
And it makes sense that this would, because this is all tied to Egwene's personal fears. So this is a good way to test her. This is someone she really cares about. Whereas in Nynaeve's testing, right, there's one with Lan, there's one with a crisis in Emond's Field, and there are barely any men in that.
And I think there's one with Rand.
The first one is just her being chased in a maze by Agenor.
Oh,
the second
right.
one is the crisis in Emond's Field, and the third one is Lan.
So I always forget about the Agenor one, because it's meh.
Yeah.
It's not the most significant.
It's very abstract and surreal, but doesn't really mean a whole lot.
Shiriam is sweeter and sweeter towards Egwene each time she comes back out of the arch. Shiriam gently took Egwene's shoulders and guided her towards the last arch.
I think she's a little more shell-shocked each time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is what I'm saying. Shiriam is such a good mistress of novices. She really cares about the girls.
I think she really does. I consider her like Varen as an unwilling black.
A reluctant black is what I'd call her. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
She just doesn't do anything about it. She just has given up and has given in.
And this is where Egwene says, he said they could turn him to the shadow, Egwene mumbled. He said the Myrddraal and the Dreadlords could force him. Shiriam missed a step and looked around quickly. An unpleasant thing to talk of, child. Can they? Egwene insisted, and Shiriam tries to sidestep and says well, it's the custom not to talk about anything that happens in the arches, so forget it.
Yeah.
And Egwene responds, can they? And then she explains. She says that it hasn't happened since the Trolloc Wars, which I buy.
No, it's been happening constantly with the Aiel. The ones who go to hunt the Dark One. All those guys who have been going into the waste have been turned.
Yeah.
It hasn't been happening in the tower.
Right.
No.
That's what I was thinking of. But you're right. It has been going on to humans, at least, in the Blight.
Totally. I thought the sentence that we learn to open ourselves to the true source means we can be open to other things felt very virgin-esque, virgin being violated type situation. By opening ourselves to having sex, we open ourselves to other more dangerous things. And that there's this this initial. I'm sorry, but like this is just...
No, but I mean, it just it is a pretty good analogy for STDs.
Yeah, it is.
This idea that like you are vulnerable.
Yeah, and I see it as like it's kind of a nonsense way to visualize it, but I see it as like in the mind of a channeler, there's like this open spigot or this open whatever, like a drain that they draw the power through, and if that drain is there, so in non-channelers it's not there, there's no opening, but there's this opening in channelers, like a literal, I imagine it as like a literal.
I think of it more as a bridge, because when Nynaeve is healing it, she sort of senses this disconnect that's been severed, and she bridges it, and so I sort of think of that bridge as that drain, or
It sounds really silly, but I visualize it as like plumbing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. That there's this
why not?
tube
Totally.
that you pull through, and because that tube is there, you can also they can also force, I don't know, the true power or whatever through it.
And
I don't know
bigger,
exactly
the
how
bigger
it works,
your tube, the more powerful you are.
and also the more vulnerable.
Yeah.
In that way.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, you're losing your structural integrity. Like if you're not a channeler, like you have this perfectly impervious shell, and then like small crack, you're a little vulnerable, larger crack, you're more vulnerable. You're the Dragon Reborn, you're like super vulnerable.
Yeah.
And speaking of healing stilling, we know when it's done by someone of the same sex, it doesn't work as well. And that's because this pipe is made out of the same thing that is flowing through it, and it's sticky.
Oh yeah, you've said that on the podcast before. It's like putting a patch.
Is that what that's about?
And then if you have something that's different, with like Sidar and Sidene don't mix, which is important for the cleansing. Like that's an important clue for the cleansing, because he forces all the Sidene through the tube of Sidar. And so in a lot of ways, the way he cleanses the source is very similar to the way you heal stilling, which is you create this bridge or this tube of the alternate power.
I never thought of that connection before. I wonder if that
is really
influenced Nynaeve's
interesting.
thinking in some way in the future when she is figuring out healing stilling.
Doesn't she heal stilling before the source is cleansed?
Is that may very well be right.
Yeah, I think she does.
Yes. Yeah, because she heals Stilling while she's still in Saladar, and then she takes off from Saladar to help Rand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she does a lot of other things first, but then she helps Rand with the cleansing.
Right. And then after the cleansing, she's pretty much with Rand until the last battle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Aside from the part where she goes off and summons the Malkiri army.
Yeah, but that's like, she has gateways at that point.
Yeah, it's like an afternoon.
Yeah.
The only other thing I wanted to note before Egwene goes through the doorway, really, the third doorway, is that Egwene notes aloud to Sheriam that, it takes 13 to turn a channeler. Well, that's exactly the number of Black Aja that left the tower.
Which would be more significant if I didn't know there were like hundreds of Black Aja.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Where I'm like,
For
13.
It's like, eh.
And Sheriam once again says, that is nothing for you to dwell on. You will forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, don't think of a purple fire truck, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then
for
we
sure.
see this reflected in her third fear.
Totally. Yeah. I wonder if that, I think we were
It's
saying
like-
this earlier, that if then this becomes her biggest fear, because that's what she just learned.
Let's shortly discuss an
I think
awful
so.
nightmare and now go face it, is what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that
Yeah, real
makes a lot of
quick. Don't
sense.
think about the scary thing.
She walks through the third doorway, and I guess I'll just read, "It shone through her. It burned her to the bone, seared her to the soul. She flashed incandescent in the light. Light helped me. There was nothing but the light and the pain."
It's a pretty severe transition each time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really want to know if what chapter is Nynaeve's testing in?
Bambi, you're killing it. TGH 22. Oh, funny that this is also chapter 22 of the next book.
Whoa.
The testing always occurs in
Taviran.
chapter 22.
So Bambi's saying the descriptions are different. So I wonder if it's because of that, the building up of the standing waves, like the singing bowl analogy we had. going on with the interaction between the ter'angreal.
It works really well.
On her body.
Yeah. She stepped forward through the arch and into the glow. It surrounded her as if the air itself were shimmering, as if she were drowning in light. The light was everywhere. The light was everything. No pain.
Yeah, that seems pretty benign.
Yeah. It's got to be the interaction between the Angreal that's making it so fucked up.
She doesn't ever describe feeling like she's being ripped apart or...
Here's her leaving. She stepped into the arch, and the light overwhelmed her. No tearing her apart. She stepped firmly into the light. Again, no pain. Yeah, this pain and anguish is all due to the interaction of the ter'angreal. And I would have no idea that being torn apart slowly is probably what almost kills her. And like the Aes Sedai are doing everything they can to bring her back together and hold her together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like shifting phases.
I also noticed that Alana says it was like the large ter'angreal. It was like the ter'angreal was trying to shut off the power flowing into it and also trying to melt itself through the floor.
It's a feedback loop.
Egwene picks up the ring and she just has, it's just like 3 words. She's just like, was it warm? But she's in the middle of a conversation. That's all that there is. But I would like to think that it is.
Oh,
warm,
I bet it is.
But the larger ter'angreal is probably like hot.
Yeah.
Totally.
All right. So we enter the third vision, and I immediately spotted an issue.
Egwene stared into the standing mirror and was not sure whether she was more surprised by the ageless smoothness of her face or the straight stole that hung around her neck, the stole of the Amerlin seat.
So later on in the vision, she admits to having never held the oath rotted.
I was wondering if you were going to get to that before me. Yeah.
Why is she ageless?
Because RJ hadn't figured his shit out yet, is my opinion.
I think this is definitely an error. Could be an alternate reality thing.
Yeah. But no, like we don't learn any of those mechanics for like books and books, so I would guess that RJ hadn't hammered that out yet.
Probably,
but it's a rare. I'm going to go with RJ is perfect, and it's an alternate reality in which the agelessness works differently.
The editor fucked up.
Yeah, blame the editor.
Harriet?
Never RJ.
I just wanted to point that out, that like she claims to have never held the oath rod, but she still has the agelessness of her face.
Yeah.
But that, okay, here's my actual explanation.
Sure.
She does not know yet that the agelessness comes from swearing on the oath rod.
True.
So, because this is based in her mind and she is Aes Sedai, she thinks that being Aes Sedai gives her the ageless face because she's channeling over time. That this is all based in her mind because she doesn't know the difference.
Yeah.
And we've agreed in the past that slowing and agelessness are not the same thing.
No, they are not.
Correct.
Because with slowing, you still look a certain age. You can still say, hey, you look 72, even though you're 300 and, or you're 500 or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But with agelessness, it's like, you had a facelift? Because you have white hair,
right.
But you just don't get any wrinkles, basically. It's just a permanent facelift. That's what it is.
I like that idea. And also when we see the descriptions of using the oath rod, there's it's like a pulling, constraining thing that washes over you.
Yeah, it's like actually restricting it. You can feel it prickling in your skin.
And it kind of, was maybe not intended that way, but that's the way I think of it.
No, I think it definitely was. And he talks about it being like the binding of it. I think the binding is actually like you feel it settling into you and you feel it like constricting you.
Hmm.
He says it feels like your skin is 2 sizes too small.
Right.
Oh, wow. Literally like that.
Yeah,
that's the way I was remembering it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, we also, a little bit later with Beldine, it's another fail in this agelessness regard because Swan and Lyanna lose their ageless look within just a few hours of being stilled. And in this vision, Beldine says she was still days prior, and yet her face doesn't look different to Egwene.
Right.
So that further supports the, Egwene doesn't know how those mechanics work, so the vision doesn't include those details.
That's mostly what I'm going with, because there's just a lot of technical details that are wrong in this vision.
And
Yeah.
hey, I wanted to ask, is Beldine is she currently an Aes Sedai?
Yes, she is. She's
In
actually a pretty
Yes,
IRL?
she is.
big character.
Yeah, I looked her up. She's got quite a big part to play.
Yeah, I've got her wiki page pulled up.
She's one of the first Aes Sedai to swear to Rand, right? Isn't she in that group?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. She's one of the ones who will serve Rand, each in her own fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Varen does the mini compulsion and gets her to decide to swear. And she was raised in Aes Sedai in 997, so like what, 2-3 years before these events? Like she's a new Aes Sedai. That was part of why she's picked to go in the expedition, actually.
She's young.
It's because she doesn't have the ageless face yet, because she's only been Aes Sedai for like 2 years.
And she dies in the last battle, fighting.
Right. She has a Ashaman warder, and they both die in the attack by the Sharans.
Oh, and Bambi says she participated in the cleansing, too.
Yeah, she's part of the defensive line in the cleansing.
Cool.
And she laughs at Min for being scholarly.
She's linked with Eben Hopwell when he's killed.
Wow.
Right. She bonds Carlton Manfor, but she's in the group with Eben. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the one where Eben goes, "She's holding Saidine," and jumps at her because it's
Right. Oh, so
Halima.
sweet.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, Beldine's actually important. It's interesting how she's really important, but then later there's also another Aes Sedai that gets mentioned, Gildan, who, like, the only time we ever see her is in this vision.
Yeah, she's
Like-
totally fictional as far as we can tell.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or she's just someone we never see again.
Right, yeah, she just never shows up in the real world, but was real, but is irrelevant.
I was trying to see if there was any black sisters in here that we later find out are black, and there aren't. Because there aren't very
There's only
many
those
named
3.
Aes Sedai in this vision. It's pretty much just those two and Elida.
And Elida.
And Elida's black, but we know she's not.
Right.
Right.
No good evidence here.
Well, I should probably note that immediately we can tell that something's wrong. So she comes, walks through the arches, sees herself looking in the mirror, and she hears, "The way back will come but once. Be steadfast." 13.
She's remembering things from the real world she was not supposed to remember, and forgetting things about the fake world that she's supposed to know.
She sways and she's dizzy, and she immediately has the thought, something is wrong.
And then she has to work out rationally that she was green, which, like, freaks her out. Because, like, I love how it's like she knows her whole life as Amerlin, and that she also knows that she should be a novice, and she's, like, struggling to hold that. I love that sense of, like, off-balanceness that comes from that.
But it doesn't seem to be working well. I think something like that happened during Nynaeve's testing, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a little
Wasn't
Yeah,
it? Where
that's
it seemed
dramatic.
like she was remembering more than she should?
Well, because she wasn't supposed to be able to remember to channel. That she
Oh,
could
right.
channel.
Right.
I think that was more to do with how powerful she was. This seems to be more like double vision, that she's got these two, like a tuning fork is wah, 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 and she's like going back and forth between these two realities and like halfway stuck between them.
I'm nodding.
Bambi, I think her dreaming talent is mostly why she survives this. Just saying.
What would have happened if she hadn't been able to free herself and she was turned in the dream? Would she never have emerged from the ring?
Ooh, that's a good question. If she had emerged.
Yeah, because she wouldn't have gone through the doorway.
I figure the novices that don't return either decided to stay or were killed or injured and unable to walk or crawl back through the arch. Meets Beldine, sees that this is her keeper, and then we see the way back will come, but the voice in her head trailed away to finish in a buzz. 13 dark friends is how the thought is completed. Beldine has arrived to bring the Amerlin seat to the ceremony to try Rand for being a channeler.
Yeah, it's not actually the stilling ceremony, it's the trial before the ceremony.
Is it like more like the sentencing?
Yeah, sentencing, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they make a procession of 2 going down the hallway, which I love that image. Procession of 2.
Procession of 2.
And Beldine's terrified because she's been stilled and she's there to like betray her. The
Right.
Black Oddjaw
And again,
has taken her.
Egwene should notice that Beldine doesn't have the ability to channel anymore. Even if the faces are the same, like, A full Aes Sedai would notice if a woman who she expects to be Aes Sedai doesn't have the ability to channel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's a ton of logical holes in this vision.
In the nature of dreams, which is
Yes,
fair.
Exactly. I want to talk a little bit about the Great Purge here.
I liked that.
Ooh, yeah.
Because we see later that the Black Aja is still clearly there. So the Great Purge,
Failed.
right, that Egwene thinks happened, that killed all the Black Aja.
And I have to wonder if that's something to do with, like, they didn't have Varen's notes. And so they just, like, you know, they got us maybe, like, 50 Black Aja or something and thought that was enough. And there was still a whole group left.
Maybe, or, you know, you never know. I kind of had the thought that, like, maybe there were a group of Aes Sedai who were like, we're going to get rid of all the Black Aja, and they were the Black Aja.
That's also possible.
You know what I mean?
That would explain Elida's rise to power.
Oh, yeah. Or they were like, oh, the hunt's getting too close.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Yeah. Or they were like, we'll just like offer up like a sacrificial 50 and be like, yep, that's all of them. Mm-hmm.
We got them.
That was everyone.
Maybe Suan was included in that batch. Maybe that's why she's not around.
Oh, I like that one.
And that's how
yeah.
how Egwene became Amyrlin. Suan got caught up in the Great
And then
Purge.
it could have swept away.
And I kind of imagine for the same reason that Egwene is raised to Amyrlin in Saladar, because she's seen as young and manipulatable.
Puppeteering?
Yeah.
I like it.
I don't have much on the next page, just a lot of ceremony and description. And we notice the way back will come but once is slowly degrading away.
Yeah.
And the other voice that's speaking feels very personal, like to her, like even more like there's like the unknowable voice and like this more personal voice, which like I'm not sure why that's happening, but I thought maybe it's because like the other ter'angreal is like starting to bond to her, because we see that like later on, like she gets very personally attached to the ring. So I wonder if like that's part of why this voice is like really coming from her, with the whole like 13 of the Black Aja waits. All of that. I don't know. Total speculation.
If nothing else, she's connected to the dream world in two different ways. So this is sort of like, have you ever had like two different signals coming in on your TV?
Sure.
And they're both like overlapping each other and you can kind of make out what's happening in both?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Right,
kind of what I imagine is going on here, is that she's connected to the dream world through the stone ter'angreal because it's resonating with the angreal she's in. The gateways one. And so because they're resonating, she's actually connecting through both. And so the voice that sounds like herself is her being connected to the dream through the stone, which is a direct connection of her real life. And then being connected through the archways has this altered reality. And so she's both people at the same time because she's connecting through both ter'angreal.
I like that.
I like it.
And then there's an additional resonance that's coming from that sort of double connection.
She's also a dream walker, so she may have some elevated ability to... that may change something.
Totally.
I don't really know what, but...
Yeah, possibly. I mostly think it's an effect of the two. Like, this would be happening to anybody if the two ter'angreal were in the same room. Not everyone would survive it.
Right.
That's a good point. And so they walk into this big bowl, the Trader's Court, which I imagine is like a Greek amphitheater. It's a huge bowl that's lined with all the Aes Sedai and novices and accepted to watch.
No, we're still in the hall.
Oh,
We're still in
right.
the hall here, right?
Yeah, this is the hall.
Sorry, this is the hall.
Get to the Trader's Court in a few pages.
Keep us in line.
Get it right, man. This is our first vision of the Hall of the Tower, both as an institution and as a room. Thought that was interesting.
Oh, yeah. I kind of liked that Egwene knows vaguely that she's supposed to go sit in the Amyrlin's chair, and she sits down. She has no idea what to do next. And so she just kind of says, begin, and it works.
Yeah.
I love that. Just
go.
sheer authority. Yeah.
Yeah, do it. And
Whatever you were going to do it. Yeah. It's kind of like when later she walks in on the hall and just tells them, like, continue. You don't want to talk to me, but I'm still going to sit here and listen. It's kind of reminiscent of that.
oh, yeah.
She must have been in this alternate reality manipulated into a situation that she couldn't control anymore. She's clearly walking into something that's been pre-planned and pre-set up and manipulated by Elida.
Mm-hmm.
Elida stands up and she gives her kind of argument or proclamation that he named himself the Dragon Reborn. This man has channeled the One Power.
Okay, Red, hold your horses.
I call on the Amerlin Seat to pronounce the sentence of gentling on this man. And like immediately she's like, why are you hesitating?
Why are you stabbing yourself?
Yeah.
And long story short, Egwene says, no, I can't. I won't.
And that's all Elida, that's her excuse to challenge her.
She betrays herself.
Sorry, Timber.
And,
Okay, Timber.
and then Beldine hits her in the head with the staff. Blackness.
So I was just wondering, why is Rand all groggy? Do you think he's dosed on fork root, or like has he been like beaten up, malnourished? Like, why is he so floppy?
I assumed he was badly beaten.
Okay.
Perhaps he's been in a box for a while.
Perhaps.
He's not in rage mode.
Yeah.
But I mean, he must be
Shielded?
cut off from the source as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely shielded.
I did notice that they don't even have warders guarding him. It just says 2 burly men.
2 dark friends?
Maybe. He must have been
Probably.
beaten very badly. Because when he breaks out of the box, he like kills 3 warders or something like that. Something crazy.
Right, but that's after only a few days. Like maybe he's been like confined for a month at this point or something.
Or drugged. Very
Yeah.
possible.
Or drugged. Because I mean, they could have. They don't find out about fork root until that woman tries to dose the girls like later, but like it could have happened. Like fork root could have somehow found its way to the tower at this point. And Mackenzie's making a good point. Yeah, she needs to save Rand, so Rand needs to be saved in a vulnerable position, needing to be saved.
That's a good point.
She doesn't believe that Rand could rip a warder apart with his bare hands, even though he totally could.
She's still unconscious? It was a rasp file on bone. Do not worry, a woman said from far, far away. She sounded uneasy, afraid, and trying not to show either. She will be dealt with before she knows what is happening to her. Then she is ours, to do with as we will. Perhaps we will give her to you for sport. After you make your use of her, of course.
So basically, after the merge, I'll rape her extensively.
Or something, yeah. Turn her, and then, I don't know.
Well, that's what I was curious about, is they say, we'll give her to you for sport after you make your use of her. So, like, the Aes Sedai are going to do something with her first, and then give her to the Murdral for sport.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, like, what...
They're going to turn her, make her, condemn Rand. Use her to make whatever declarations they want, and then once she's no longer useful, turn her over to the Murdral to be
Whatever.
used.
Yeah.
Right. But, like, they also have already made Elida into the Amerlin by then, so it's like, why do you even need a puppet Amerlin? But maybe it's because she's really strong, so she'd be a really good Dreadlord.
Yeah. Surely she'd still be useful for a while at least.
And I thought it was a good foreshadowing for what happens to Swan, because this is literally what happens to Swan in terms of how she wakes up. Like, she gets hit in the head, and then wakes up naked and in a dungeon and cut off from the source. It's like literally what happens to Swan, except it's slightly different.
Yeah.
Well, there's no Murdral there, as far as we know.
And Egwene's not. Yeah, and Egwene's not stilled, but nonetheless, it's like this is how the Amerlin goes down. She gets brutally assaulted out of nowhere and then wakes up naked and in a dungeon.
Well, you don't want to do it to her face.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's probably how every Amerlin has gone down, really.
Swan's strong too.
Yeah.
She would be difficult to cut off if she was conscious.
They're all pretty strong.
Egwene wakes up. She sees a few Murdral.
This is similar to the situation where the girls wake up after getting bumped on the head and they're given the tea that's supposed to make them sleep but just clears their headache. And they come out and...
later this book, actually.
Yeah. They save the Aiel who are going to face the Shadow Man.
Oh, right.
Fades,
Dance with me, Shadow Man.
Egwene had no need to count the Murdral. She knew. 13. I'm going to skip ahead a little. She's awake. She cannot be. Not yet. Shield her, quickly. but it's too late. They can't do it. She's already grabbed the source, and they say she's too strong.
Frankly surprised they didn't have her shielded when she was unconscious.
Yeah, idiots.
That probably has a lot to do with the dream setting situation up for her.
Flames burst from Murdrall's
Right.
skin, ripping through black cloth as if they were solid daggers of fire. Shrieking half-men crisped and burned like oiled paper. I love this scene so much, so I'm just going to go for
So
it. Stop
I
me
love
if you will.
unbridled use of power to destroy. It happens so rarely that just when it's
so good.
It's so good.
Shrieking half-men, crisped and burned like oiled paper. Fist-sized chunks of stone torn themselves free of the walls and whizzed across the room, producing shrieks and grunts as they thudded into flesh. The air stirred, shifted, howled into a whirlwind. Slowly, painfully, Egwene pushed herself off the table. The wind whipped her hair and made her stagger, but she continued to drive it as she stumbled toward the door. An Aes Sedai loomed in front of her, a woman bruised and bleeding, surrounded by the glow of the power, a woman with death in her dark eyes. Egwene's mind put a name to the face, Gildan, Elida's closest confidant, always whispering together in corners, closeting themselves in the night. Egwene's mouth tightened. Disdaining stones and wind, she balled up her fist and punched Gildan between the eyes as hard as she could. The red sister, the black sister, crumpled as if her bones had melted. Rubbing her knuckles, Egwene staggered out into the hall. Thank you, Perrin, she thought, for showing me how to do that. But you didn't tell me how much it hurts when you do.
Badass.
That was the coolest thing ever.
Love
There's half-men bursting into flame, and she has this whirlwind of rocks, I am imagining, like, swirling around her, and then she punches somebody in the face. She has so many
hard
other
she
things she could have
passes
done.
And I also noticed she only uses the power against the Murdral and doesn't use the power as a weapon against another person,
Even though she could.
even though she could.
Right. Right. She's already internalizing those like rules of being Aes Sedai into her soul at this point.
Yeah, I saw that.
And you can, even by the oaths, if you know someone's a dark friend, you can use the power against them as a weapon. So she probably
Right.
she could have against this
And
woman.
Gildan certainly is, but she also appears to be turned. A woman with death in her dark eyes? Oh, maybe not.
That does.
But I saw it as she was turned.
That's a good call.
It could be either way. Yeah, we don't. It definitely could be.
Yeah.
That could just mean hatred, but
Yeah.
that's the way I saw it. One of my
Like, I'm going to kill you.
Right.
Yeah. I just also love how like Egwene like wakes up and instantly sets everyone on fire. That's like a few heartbeats from like waking up to like blowing people's brains out.
Do we want to talk about Gildan a little bit and the fact that she doesn't exist in the real world? And I think she would have been mentioned if she actually did exist in the real world, because she's Elida's closest confidant, and it would seem like we would have known about that.
She would at least have come up at some point. And isn't Gildan is kind of like, is it Alviarin that was like had like a similar role in Elida's life previously? They were like close as novices, but not anymore. But...
That's Galena.
Yeah.
Galena?
Yeah.
Okay. Gildan Galena.
Galena is.
I wonder if Gildan was a name for Galena and just didn't get changed.
Oh,
or
that would make a lot of sense.
Or he changed it so it wasn't a giveaway. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my headcanon now, is that's Galena.
Yeah, the name just got garbled in translation across the barrier. Yeah, I like it. I'm going with it.
So Egwene runs. She barricades the door and runs. Where she finds Beldine, because she goes looking for proper clothing.
Any clothing.
Any clothing,
I can't take down the tower naked.
I can do it scrubbing pots as a servant, but not naked.
Yeah, that's just too much.
Yeah. So this is where we find out that Beldine was stilled 3 nights ago.
Which, like, again, Egwene should have noticed that. But
right, and that she shouldn't have the agelessness and all that, yeah.
Explains and says, I didn't have any choice. They said that.
Oh, but I did have the thought when they say she's still, because they say they could have given her the power back, which I'm like, you can't do that. Like, nobody can do that. But what if she was stilled the way Leandrin was stilled, with a super complex shield that she couldn't get out of? Because then that would have kept Egwene from noticing or her losing the face, and it would have also made it possible for her power to get restored. It's the one workaround I can think of.
It could be.
She seems to be very convinced that she is stilled.
Yeah, I'm overthinking it. Damn it.
I mean, that could be a workaround. You could say that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, I might say it just for myself.
And they want to give her the power back by, like, giving her the true power, basically.
Or bringing her to the Dark One to
okay.
be.
Right.
That's what they say that the Dark One can.
Yeah, but not by giving. I don't think you could ever give her the one power back. I think you could give her maybe access to the true power.
Maybe.
Yeah. That actually makes a lot more sense. God damn it, Seth. It ruined my headcanon.
Anytime.
No, it's good though. It's much cleaner. That's what friends are for.
Beldine tells Egwene that Rand is in the Traitors' Court, so she knows where to go.
And she knows that Elida's already been raised Amerlin if Rand is already in the Traitors' Court.
Nodding.
And Elida's black.
Right, we get the confirmation that Elida's black because she's part of the stilling and you can have the true power situation. And then we get Egwene being like, nope, I never swore on the oath rod.
Bullshit. But yeah, which doesn't really help her all that much. I mean, I guess it means she can use the power as a weapon against these women. But she could anyway because they're dark friends. So I don't really see what not swearing on the oath rod gets you.
Yeah, I guess it gives her the ability to kill people who she doesn't know if they're a dark friend.
I
She
suppose.
can still just choose to kill them for convenience sake.
Just go in all guns blazing.
Like on the next page when she thinks that the warders might not let her into the Traitors' Court, not that it matters because they're just men. She says, like, even warders will break if she starts killing them with lightning.
Sure,
you know.
Sure. Yeah, she doesn't have to worry about...
They'll run, too.
Yeah. Totally.
Right.
That makes sense.
And then she decides not to because it would break the power of the White Tower, which is like, she's already so, like, proto-Amerlin. Like, even in her own mind, it's like she's already prioritizing the tower as equal to her own life or to Rand's life.
Yeah. She does do something pretty advantageous here, where she, instead of going to the Traitors' Court, she climbs a tower near the Traitors' Court and looks down on it, which I thought that would be a good way to get some things done, whatever that may be.
Yeah, well, she can't go into the middle of it. She'd be in the middle of all the Black Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
She'd be taken down pretty much instantly.
Her shoes are clicking as she runs. She's not wearing slippers. Her backup shoes are not slippers.
No, good point.
Why would they be? You gotta run.
Slippers aren't for farm girls.
I know, right? But just like in the earlier chapter, you guys were talking about, like, Elida's wearing slippers, and slippers are just for, like, floofy ladies that never go outside. And it's like, yeah, Egwene's Amerlin has boots, or
Totally.
at least shoes with actual soles.
Yeah.
So it all comes back to boots. It always comes back to boots.
Always.
Or shoes, whatever your choice of shoes is.
Is that a Matt quote?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's a beautiful Matt speech. I love it so much. And then Satala being like, oh, you're so philosophical. And he's like, no, I'm not.
So what you're saying is the boots are an allegory for the bourgeoisie versus the peasants. And he's like, no, it's just about the boots.
No, you just need good shoes, man.
Yeah.
So she climbs up this tower onto the roof of a tower, and is looking down into this Traitors' Court and sees Rand surrounded by Elida and 12 Aes Sedai.
She's trying to figure out how to rescue him.
Without starting a war.
Yeah. And then she hears the way back.
Is this our first mention of Balefire when she thinks about attacking the warders? Is that the first time we actually hear the term Balefire?
Don't think so. I think
Okay.
Rand has thought of it or heard of it before in one of his dreams.
Well, I know we've seen the effects of it, but I don't know if
Yeah.
we've ever gotten a name for it.
Because he's using it on the Darkhounds as he runs.
Right.
We definitely saw him use that.
But I don't think he knows what he's
Right.
doing.
No, and it's not, the word Balefire is not in the book, this book, before this point. Let me look at the Great Hunt really quick.
Yeah, and I know that Nynaeve uses what is clearly Balefire in her testing, in her accepted test. But again, like,
Yes.
she doesn't have a name for it. She just turns the air to liquid fire.
Yeah. Yeah, she doesn't know what she's doing either.
So this is another one of those, like, little, like, info drops from, like, the wider world that Egwene doesn't actually know, but she gets out of this vision, is that name.
Yeah, this is, I'm not seeing it in the Great Hunt either.
Because she thinks even warders would break if she loosed the lightnings on them and balefire and broke the ground under their feet. Balefire? She wondered.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah.
that that's the first mention we get of Balefire. We learn a lot in alternate realities.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're good for you. Should always take a trip outside of reality.
It's kind of like like skipping all the knowledge that all the things you have to learn, and like getting a glimpse of your life the way it will be. And so you get all these like, oh, balefire. Yeah, I spent a long time learning that, but now I kind of know what it is.
Yeah.
I always wonder if any of that knowledge sticks with them. That like maybe the knowledge of how to make balefire actually comes from an alternate reality.
I like it.
Because because they just start tossing balefire around like it's, oh yeah, I know how to do that. I'm like, how?
Yeah.
Moraine learned, but doesn't she reference that it's like kind of, it's not a thing that is taught really, that she had to go to some lengths to learn how to do that.
Yeah, it's forbidden.
Which does beg the question of who the hell did she learn it from?
Yeah. Well, Van Dien and Adelitas are the only real candidates.
Yeah, for sure. But they're such traditionalists as Aes Sedai. It's like, I can't think that they were out there like skeet practicing with balefire. Like,
can you learn weaves from a manuscript?
Do you think the Green Sisters have like skeet practice, but with fire?
But then, like, how would you learn a weave out of a book?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I suppose you couldn't. I mean, because we don't ever see an example of that, right?
No.
It has to be a person
No.
that teaches another person.
It's always words in
Or-
conversation.
Or watching.
Yeah. No one ever says, oh, you can learn to channel from this book we have over here. Like, you just can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a thing. And maybe it's just one of those, like, weird metaphysical things that, like, because it's so powerful, like, strong channelers just sort of pluck it out of their previous lives of knowing it, or some weird meta shit like that.
And Wilders, like Rand and Nynaeve, are, I think, just kind of furiously grasping at, like, Nynaeve wants to eradicate something, like, really not just destroy it, but, like, obliterate it from existence. And she doesn't know what she's doing, but she just does it.
They intuit the weave to destroy.
She finds the most efficient way.
Yeah. Well, as she's there on the tower top looking down on the scene, the arch appears.
And you think it was like, my assumption is she hasn't heard the way back will come but once for a while, because this resonance actually sort of disconnected her from the real world.
She does hear it this time.
Yeah, but then I imagine they went and got a whole bunch of other Aes Sedai and brought them in to try and stabilize it, and that's how they're able to like reopen communication with her and open up the gateway again.
I was wondering that. Is it the Aes Sedai that are deciding when to throw the message in? Like, it's been 3 minutes, let's drop the message again. Or is it just a function of the Terangrial?
I imagine it's like, it's because it's part of the ceremony that it kind of echoes through, that like they say it once and I'm imagining it as an echo.
And they do say it to her each time before she walks through.
But yeah, I like the idea that the only reason she's getting the message again is because they like doubled up on the amount of power that they were throwing into it.
Totally.
I like that.
Yeah. And that's why you see the gateway sort of appear and flicker and then come back and waver.
And she starts to hear the voices coming through from the other side.
Yeah.
Like, not the unknowable voice, but like actual people's voices.
Right.
Because they're like wrenching it open.
And she can hear Swan yelling at the Aes Sedai.
How do you know it's Swan?
I'll gut you all like sturgeon.
Oh, it's a sea-based analogy. It's Swan.
Yeah, it's a fish thing.
It's a fish thing.
Obviously.
It's a fish thing you would
Hold her,
understand.
I'll gut you like sturgeon. That is definitely Swan. No one else would say that.
And then,
and also the response is, it's going wild, mother. So, they're clearly talking to Swan.
Yeah.
the voices faded to a drone, the drone to silence, but the unknowable spoke again. The way back will come but once. Be steadfast. There is a price to be Aes Sedai. The Black Ajah waits.
I was gonna say, I love how those voices like meld together. Like they start out being like very like opposite, and then like they sort of come together into like saying the same thing. I don't know. At least that's how I've always like read the italics. Is like they start out as two different voices, and then they become one voice.
I like that. With a scream of rage, of loss, Egwene threw herself at the arch as it shimmered in like a heat haze. She almost wished she would miss and plunge to her death. Light plucked her apart fiber by fiber, sliced the fibers to hairs, split the hairs to wisps of nothing. All drifted apart on the light, forever.
So she's gone from that alternate reality forever. That's how I saw that.
The abandoned Rand again. Guys, we did it! We survived chapter 22! Thank you for tolerating me.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?